They said we were the perfect couple. Church on Sundays, 2 beautiful daughters, a quiet, loving life, until one night, I got a message that shattered it all. My wife, kissing her boss. And worse? My own daughter helped her hide it. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of how I lost everything, and found something stronger. Myself. It was the kind of life people envied, the kind of marriage everyone seemed to dream about. Hank and Jenna had been together for years, their bond seemingly unbreakable. They were both raised in the heart of America, with strong Christian values that prioritized faith above all else. Every Sunday, without fail, they were in church, reflecting on their blessings, discussing their plans, and imagining a future built on trust and love. Hank was an accomplished engineer, and Jenna excelled in her role at a major tech company, selling accounting software. They were a team, each succeeding in their own careers but also nurturing a growing family, one they both cherished. In their cozy home, they created a world of their own, a life that was simple yet fulfilling. They had twin girls, and every evening was spent making sure their daughters felt safe and loved. Their marriage was built on a foundation of openness, trust, and unwavering support for each other. It wasn't flashy, there were no extravagant vacations or nights out at trendy spots. Their weekends were spent at home, cooking, talking, and sometimes just enjoying the quiet. Jenna's wardrobe reflected her conservative nature, and their intimacy, though passionate, was something they kept private. To the outside world, they were perfect, the couple everyone admired. Their friends often joked that they were soulmates, and some even envied their closeness. But beneath the surface of this perfect facade, things were beginning to shift. The cracks were small at first, unnoticed. Then came the fateful day, a week before Jenna was scheduled to attend her company's annual exhibition. Some of her colleagues had fallen ill, and despite her reluctance, Jenna was told she had to go. She was disappointed, apologizing to Hank for leaving them behind, even though she tried everything she could to get out of it. She packed her bags with a heavy heart, leaving Hank and the twins behind, promising to return soon. Their love was rock solid, or so Hank thought. Jenna had never given him any reason to doubt her faithfulness. The trust they shared was sacred to both of them. As she left for the conference, Hank assured her that they would be just fine without her. A few days apart would be hard, but their love would hold strong. What Hank didn't know was that these few days apart would mark the beginning of a betrayal he never saw coming. It started innocently enough with a text from Mike, a colleague and friend of Hank's, who was also at a cybersecurity event in Dallas. Mike mentioned that he had seen Jenna at the exhibition, asking if Hank was attending as well. Hank confirmed that she was in Dallas, though he wasn't sure about the specifics of the event. Then Mike sent a couple of photos, and that's when everything began to change. Hank, at first, thought nothing of it, just another photo from a friendly colleague. But then came the next photo, and the video. He could barely process what he was seeing. Jenna, dressed in a revealing dress, laughing and dancing with someone he didn't recognize. His heart sank as he realized that something was off. The video, brief but devastating, showed Jenna kissing another man, her boss, Tom. The betrayal hit Hank like a freight train, leaving him breathless. This wasn't just an innocent moment, it was a lie, a violation of everything they had built together. As the night went on, the photos and videos kept coming, each one more damning than the last. Hank's mind raced. His wife, the woman he had trusted with his heart, had been hiding a secret life, a life he hadn't known about. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, too. The evidence was undeniable, and the weight of it all nearly crushed him. The man he had once seen as a partner, as someone he could rely on, had become a stranger. And Jenna, the woman he loved, was caught up in a web of lies, making it harder for Hank to see the person he once knew. He fought to hold back his tears, to make sense of the mess in his head. But how could he? How could he reconcile the woman who had kissed him every night, the woman who had promised to love him forever, with the one in the videos? As Hank sat in the dimly lit living room, nursing a drink to steady his shaking hands, he couldn't help but wonder, how had he missed the signs? Had this been going on for months? Years? it didn't add up. Their relationship had only grown stronger in recent months. Everything seemed perfect. Then, there was the phone call. Jenna, sounding sweet and affectionate, unaware of the storm she had unleashed. She missed him, missed the girls, promised to make it up to them when she got back. She was sorry. She hated being away. Hank played along, keeping his voice steady, pretending everything was fine. But deep down, he knew, nothing was fine. The woman he had loved, the mother of his children, had betrayed him in the worst way. The lies Jenna had told to cover her tracks, the lies that seemed so innocent at first, had now turned into the ultimate betrayal. What hurt the most wasn't just the affair, it was the deceit. It was the realization that the woman he trusted most had kept secrets from him for months, maybe longer. The pain of it gnawed at him, but so did the anger. He had to do something. He had to make her face the consequences of her actions. And that's when the plans began to take shape. Hank would find out everything, he would leave no stone unturned. He would get to the truth, no matter how much it hurt. But even as he made his plans, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking down a path from which there was no return. The story Hank was about to live through would change him forever. The man he had been would no longer exist. What came next would define his future, for better or for worse. Hank sat in the quiet of his living room, a drink in his hand, his heart racing, trying to comprehend what had just shattered his world. The night was still, yet inside his chest, chaos roiled. His phone vibrated on the table in front of him, a message from Mike, a colleague, a friend. It was strange to feel the anxiety tighten around him even though he didn't know yet what the message contained. A creeping sense of unease had settled over him since Jenna left for her work trip. It was only a few days, but it felt like an eternity. Little did he know, these were going to be the longest days of his life. Mike's message was innocent enough at first, just a casual update about the conference, a mention of seeing Jenna, and then the photos came. Hank blinked as the first image appeared. It was Jenna, standing at the exhibition. She looked stunning, a side of her he had never seen before. The deep neckline of her dress, the bold heels, the flawless makeup, it was all so different. Something stirred in Hank's chest, a strange feeling of both admiration and discomfort. He hadn't seen her like this in years, certainly never outside their intimate moments. He chuckled lightly to himself, thinking how she might look good dressing like that more often. Then the second picture arrived, and his laughter died in his throat. Jenna was sitting close to a man, someone Hank recognized, but didn't quite place at first. His eyes scanned the photo, narrowing as he made the connection. It was Tom Foster, her boss. His heart skipped a beat, and a gnawing dread filled his stomach. This was not the comfortable picture he had imagined. The third photo left him frozen. His wife was smiling into Tom's eyes. The familiarity of their closeness, the way she leaned into him, it was unmistakable. It was intimate. Too intimate. Hank's grip on the phone tightened, and his pulse quickened. He tried to convince himself that there must be some kind of misunderstanding, some innocent explanation. But then the video arrived. Hank watched, heart sinking with every passing second. Jenna and Tom were kissing. It wasn't just a quick peck either. It was full of passion, arms wrapped around each other, Tom's hands on her back, and her arms around his neck. Everything Hank thought he knew about his marriage shattered in an instant. He couldn't breathe. His eyes blurred as tears welled up, but he was too stunned to even let them fall. The world spun, and for a long moment, he was lost in the video, his mind racing to find an explanation, but none would come. It wasn't until a message popped up from Mike that Hank finally spoke again. "Are you okay? Do you want me to check on her?" Mike's words hit Hank like a slap in the face. It was too much, all at once. "Yes," Hank typed back, his hands shaking, "I'll call her right now." He grabbed the phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed her number. It rang several times before going to voicemail. His heart pounded. He left a message, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending that he didn't just watch his entire world unravel in front of him. "We miss you," he said, forcing the words through his tight throat. "Hope you're having a good evening." He couldn't bring himself to leave it at that. He quickly sent Mike an update, not knowing why he needed to do it but doing it anyway. "Just tried to reach her. Can't get through." Mike replied almost immediately, sounding guilty. "I'm sorry about all this, Hank. She saw your call and just ignored it. I've never seen her act or dress like this. It's all wrong." Hank didn't know how to respond to that. It didn't make sense. Jenna had never been like this. She was loving, affectionate, always present in their life together. But now? Now, Hank didn't know who she was anymore. He tried to make sense of it, but he couldn't. The images, the videos, they didn't lie. The night passed in a blur. Hank drank more than he should have, trying to numb the searing pain in his chest. His mind replayed the images over and over, each one carving deeper into his soul. He closed his eyes, but all he saw was her, the woman he loved, wrapped in someone else's arms. The betrayal was suffocating. An hour later, another message from Mike appeared. This time, there were more photos, more evidence. Jenna and Tom were dancing together at a nightclub. His hand rested on her back, guiding her through the dance. The next image was of them locked in another kiss, this one more intense, more careless. The video that followed showed them in the middle of the dance floor, their lips meeting once again, oblivious to the world around them. Hank's body went cold. His world seemed to slow down as he took it all in. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. This was real, and it had been happening for months. Hank closed his eyes, his heart breaking all over again. He couldn't breathe. This wasn't how he imagined their life would go. The woman he had trusted, the woman he had built a life with, was living a double life. The trust they had, shattered. His mind raced. How long had this been going on? He couldn't even answer his own question, and that made it worse. He felt betrayed not just by Jenna, but by his own blind trust in her. How had he missed this? How could he have been so blind to what was right in front of him? Minutes passed, maybe hours. Hank couldn't keep track of time anymore. When the phone buzzed again, he didn't even flinch. It was Jenna. She was calling. She sounded the same as always, apologizing for missing his call earlier, telling him she missed him and the girls. It was almost as though nothing had changed. She promised she'd call him back tomorrow, that she couldn't wait to come home and be with them. But Hank's mind was elsewhere. He had already heard everything he needed to hear. Every word she said now felt hollow. "I love you," she said, her voice soft and affectionate. "I love you more," Hank replied, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "I miss you." But as he spoke, his mind was far from the sweet words they exchanged. He had seen the truth now, and it was impossible to unsee it. The anger bubbled inside him, but so did a deep sorrow. He couldn't let it go, not now. This was a betrayal that would change everything. He had to know the truth, all of it. And he would make sure Jenna knew he knew it too. When the call ended, Hank set the phone down slowly. His thoughts were a whirlwind, but one thing was clear, everything was about to change. The woman he thought he knew, his wife, was no longer the person he had married. He wasn't sure who she was anymore, but he knew one thing for certain, he wasn't going to let this betrayal go unpunished. The next few days were a blur. Hank moved through the motions, going through the routines of everyday life with Jenna, pretending nothing was wrong. But the anger and heartbreak festered beneath the surface. He started to plan, quietly, methodically. This wasn't just about exposing her. It was about ensuring that she, and the men involved, faced the consequences of what they had done. He wasn't sure how it would all play out, but he knew one thing for sure, he would never be the same again. And neither would Jenna. Days turned into a week, and Hank could feel the pressure of the truth weighing on him more and more. Every time Jenna kissed him, he couldn't help but remember the images of her with Tom, the way she looked into his eyes with a tenderness he hadn't seen in years. It disgusted him. The way she had been able to lie, day after day, made Hank question everything about their relationship. How many lies had she told him over the years? How many more would she have kept hidden if Mike hadn't sent those images? As the days wore on, Hank's plans took shape. He had already started to gather evidence, each new piece of information a fresh blow to his heart. He used his background in engineering to approach this logically. He wasn't just acting out of raw emotion. His next move had to be precise. He knew he needed to act quickly before his emotions overtook him completely, but every time he thought about confronting her, the anger boiled over, threatening to consume him. Jenna returned home a few days later, looking the same as ever, sweet, loving, unaware of the storm brewing inside Hank. She kissed him like nothing had changed, like the lies hadn't been exposed for what they were. Hank held her, pretending that he was still the man she loved, pretending that everything was fine. But every touch, every word, was a reminder of the betrayal. He couldn't pretend for much longer. By the time he finally gathered the courage to confront her, the truth was already out. His mind was made up. He would no longer stand by silently. It was time for Jenna to face the consequences of her actions, and Hank was determined to ensure that the men involved would also be held accountable. The discovery had shattered Hank in ways he never imagined, but it also gave him the clarity he needed to move forward. Jenna had broken the bond they had worked so hard to build. Now, Hank was going to make sure she, and everyone involved, would never forget the price of betrayal. Hank sat in his dimly lit living room, the weight of the betrayal still heavy on his heart. His fingers gripped the glass of whiskey, the ice clinking against the sides as his mind raced. He couldn't comprehend how his life had spiraled into this darkness. The woman he had loved more than anything, the one he had built a life with, had broken his trust in the most devastating way imaginable. The images from that fateful night in Dallas still haunted him, the photos and videos that his friend Mike had sent him, each one like a dagger to his soul. His marriage had always been a sanctuary. A place of trust, love, and shared goals. The couple had been inseparable, united in their commitment to each other and their twin daughters. It was a life he cherished, even if it wasn't filled with glamour or excitement. They had built their world slowly and steadily, one loving decision after another. But now, it felt like everything had crumbled around him. The shock of the betrayal was still fresh. He thought he knew Jenna. They had shared so much, from their humble beginnings to the life they had crafted together. But now, he was questioning everything. The woman in the photos, the woman who had kissed another man in such a raw and intimate moment, was unrecognizable to him. This wasn't the Jenna he had married. He couldn't even bring himself to call her his wife anymore. As the hours passed, Hank's mind continued to spiral. He replayed the events over and over, trying to make sense of it all. But every time he did, the answers only led to more questions. Was it just a physical affair, or was there more to it? Had Jenna been hiding something deeper than mere lust? And why had she chosen Tom, her boss, of all people? Had she been emotionally invested in him? He needed to know more, and this gnawing uncertainty was eating away at him. He needed proof, more evidence, to fully comprehend the betrayal. He needed answers. In his mind, one thing was clear: Jenna's lies were no longer something he could ignore. They were too great, too hurtful to simply dismiss. If he was going to seek justice, if he was going to get the closure he so desperately needed, he would have to expose the truth. And that meant gathering evidence, finding proof that would hold up in a court of law. Hank knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed help. So, he turned to the only option that made sense: hiring a private investigator. A PI could gather the information he needed, ensure that the evidence would be legally viable if it came down to a divorce, and perhaps even provide him with a strategy for gaining custody of the girls. They were his priority now, more than ever. With this decision made, Hank's next steps were set in motion. He contacted a trusted private investigator and began the process of setting up surveillance. The PI, a grizzled professional with years of experience in tracking down the truth, reassured Hank that everything would be done within legal bounds. The investigator outlined the steps: surveillance of Jenna's movements, analysis of her phone records, and even a deep dive into her online activity. Hank gave his consent, though every part of him recoiled at the thought of invading his wife's privacy this way. But the truth was, he had no choice. He couldn't let Jenna get away with this. Not after everything they had shared. Not after the years they had spent together. The pain of the betrayal was overwhelming, but the idea of living a lie, of continuing to pretend that everything was fine, was worse. He couldn't let her continue to deceive him and their children. The PI started immediately. As the days passed, Hank's anxiety grew. Every new piece of evidence that came in chipped away at the image of the perfect family he had once believed in. He discovered that Jenna and Tom had been meeting regularly, far more than he had ever imagined. The PI provided Hank with photos, videos, and text messages that confirmed his worst fears. Jenna had been seeing Tom for months, sneaking away to meet him at motels, at hotels, at every available opportunity. And then, there was Charlie Gray, the CEO of her company, who had entered the picture just recently. Hank's stomach turned as he learned of the involvement of not one, but two men. The affair was not just a mistake, it was a full-blown betrayal. As the evidence piled up, Hank felt a strange mix of anger and detachment. He was no longer the same man who had been living a lie. He was hardened now, resolved to make Jenna and everyone else involved face the consequences of their actions. He began to plot his next move. But revenge was not just about punishment. For Hank, it was about justice. It was about protecting his children, securing their future, and ensuring that Jenna's actions wouldn't go unpunished. He couldn't bear the thought of her continuing to play the role of the devoted mother while she was secretly betraying him. The next step in Hank's plan was to secure his finances. He had learned the hard way that money was power, and he needed every advantage he could get. He started by transferring funds into